Hey, it's Eren Millam with Premier Property Group. I help people achieve financial security and freedom through real estate. Now, today's question of the day is, what is earnest money? So a lot of people get earnest money confused with the down payment, and it's a totally different device, and it is a very useful tool for buyers, and let me tell you why. Back previously, before earnest money was a thing, when you write a contract, the only way a seller could remedy you backing out of a contract was to sue you. Now, there was no limits on them suing you. So let's say you're buying a $100,000 house, they could still sue you for $1 million. They could sue you for everything you have. So what earnest money does, let's say, for example, in Lewis County, our average is $500 to $1,000. Maybe on some higher end listings, you go higher than that. But typically $500 to $1,000 just because we're kind of a lower income area. So that said, the earnest money of $500 protects you if you have to default on your contract for whatever reason. So you default, and all that seller can go after is that $500. But it's not crystal clear that they get it. When I talk to sellers, I will often tell them the earnest money is great, but basically it's meaningless for them, because let's say they default on a contract. Well, if the buyer decides they don't want to give it to you, you have to take them to court. Now, is it worth it to take them to court for $500 or $1,000 or even $5,000? And you have to make that judgment. In most cases, let me scratch that. So in all cases, the sellers never thought it was worthwhile to take a buyer to court. Now, the way that contracts are written is you have so many protections as a buyer that it's going to be really hard to default on a contract. I've really only had one situation with that where the buyer's financial situation changed in a way that made him uncomfortable to purchase the house. However, he still was approved for that amount. So he had gone past all his protections except for a financial, which lasts throughout the deal. But he wanted to back out even though he was still approved. So if the lender had said, look, your financial situation has changed, you can no longer afford to buy this house, he could get out, no questions asked, get his earnest money back, because that's the protection. But because he was still able to purchase the house financially, according to the lender, then he didn't necessarily have a right to his earnest money because he's defaulting on the contract. However, could he have fought that? Yes, he could have. But again, the question is it going to be worth your time fighting for $500 or $1,000? Now, it might be. However, you're probably going to end up spending way more than that in attorney fees and court expenses. So it may not be really worth it for you. And that's why earnest money, basically pointless. However, as a buyer, it is a protection for you in that in the worst case scenario, you default on the contract for whatever reason, that is what seller can go after. Now, one caveat, you want to be certain that that's what your contract says, because there's an option for the seller can go after earnest money or seller's election of remedies, which could be suing you for everything you got. So make sure your agent is writing the contract in a way that protects you and your interests. And that goes for both sides of the deal if you're representing the seller or you're representing the buyer. So that said, if you have enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. If it was helpful to you, go ahead and give it a like, leave a comment. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I answer all questions unless they're like weird. I've had some weird comments. I usually still answer those as well, just because it's fun, right? And also consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any more need-to-know information about real estate and the Lewis County market in general. My next series of videos is going over what happens between making the deal and the inspection, and then I'm going to go over questions that I get a lot about inspections, and then from there we're going to go about questions I get about appraisals. So keep an eye out for that. That's the next series of videos that is coming out. Again, my name is Eren Millam with Premier Property Group, and remember, never settle for less than extraordinary.